Hello, and welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon Live. It's them because you don't know how it's going to turn out.
My kids empowered me to get out.
What's going on with this remote learning in the midst of COVID?
Working for different elected officials, learning and understanding how to put the community first.
Hello, and welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon. Thank you for joining us tonight. And hello there, my co-host, Dr. Vanessa. How you doing?
Hey, Lottie. I'm great. I'm excited.
Look, I can't wait. Hurry up and get that introduction over because
Absolutely. Listen, everybody just
tonight.
Stand by for our special guest tonight. His name is Mr. Bobby Love. He's from North Carolina. He is married with 4 children. Him and his lovely wife, Cheryl, lives between New York and Atlanta. Please stay tuned for his journey. Let's welcome my guest tonight, Mr. Bobby Love.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, Mr. Love. I tell you, I couldn't wait for tonight to talk to you. I want to thank LaRose for introducing me to you. She goes to your church. They go to church together. And She was telling me, you have to meet the deacon at my church and hear about his story. So when she told me about the story, I was like, yes. Ask him, could he come on our show, right? So we're just so excited to have you joining us tonight because your story is like no other story. I tell you, a story of faith, family, and justice. I tell you, I can't wait for you to tell the people about this story. So what I want to start off with you, tell us the beginning of how this all became about. Because I know, you was arrested, I think it was for armed robbery, and then you went to prison. So let's take it from there.
Okay, back
I know you were doing, you can tell us about some of the little stuff you were doing before they actually, you got sent prison the last time.
Okay, the last time I got to prison, I was arrested for escape. They came in, the cops, FBI. It was back in 2015. They came in like, oh boy, it was very shocking, and my wife was very scared. And they took me out that day and told me I was arrested for the escape of 1977.
Well, take us back to 1977 when you first got in trouble in North Carolina, before you escaped. What happened then that brings us up to that point?
There was 4 of us, and we would come down to North Carolina and do robberies. We were robbing banks and credit unions. So we got arrested in 1971, and from there we went to prison, myself and 3 other co-defendants.
So I think that
then one day you was leaving, I think you said it was moving you to another place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, after being in prison for so long, and I worked in the hospital, I worked in the canteen, I worked in the kitchen, and then they moved me to the road, going out there cleaning up and picking paper up and cutting grass and things like that. I felt like I was done wrong by even being sent out there. So that's when I started to look around and think about doing something else. And like leaving.
Before you continue, not interrupt you, but how many years did they give you for just armed robbery?
They gave us 25 to 30 years.
Oh, 25 to 30 years. And
yes,
how many years you served?
I served 6.
You made that decision.
I served 6.
He figured 6 years was too long, right?
Yeah.
So
they were, you I don't know. In prison, it's like sometimes you have things that happen, and one of the captains told me that once they took me out of the canteen, that was one of the best jobs there, and they took me out for no reason. So I talked to a black captain, because the white captain took me out, and he said, if you don't have trouble, why knock it? Why continue to try to go back or try to get that job back, and just be happy that nothing else happened from this.
Mhm.
And that's when they sent me out to the road, and I said that wasn't right.
Right. So what happened then when they sent you out to the road?
Well, it was getting cold out there, so they gave me a coat. So they gave me a big coat to wear out there while I work on the road. This was in late October. And I thought to myself, I said, if I can go through this gate with my own personal coat and have double clothes on, and I had already picked out a spot where I could jump off the back of this bus, I would leave. So I did a test run with the coat that they gave me by putting it in a big bag. So I put it in a big bag, went through the gate. Nobody stopped me. Nobody said to me, you can't come through here with this coat on. And okay. So I said, okay. And it was like, now I'm setting up a day that I'm going to actually do this. I had a little bit of money. I had been saving my personal money that I get, $5 a week. And I had some money from just keeping me some money. And finally last that day come, and I jumped off the back of the bus and ran to the woods. Took off the clothes that was on the top, and I put on the leather coat that I had in the bag, and then it was on to try to get to the bus station in Raleigh.
Wow.
Wow, that is a journey, right? And I know from that journey brought you to New York. 40 years since you're in New York. So how was that?
Okay, I had been to New York many a time shopping and stuff like that as I grew up in Washington, D.C. So I had some history with New York. So my thing was to get to New York and just blend in. I made an oath that I was not going to get in any kind of trouble. So when I got to New York, the first thing I did was went over and on 42nd Street. 42nd Street was a lot different back then. They had all the peep shows and a lot of stuff going on. I called it sex, drugs, and rock and roll back then. And I just blend in with that environment, that group, and I just walked around 42nd Street. I would come down and get me a hot dog or get me a soda. And I stayed in a little flea bag of a hotel one night for $8. And I said, no, I'm not doing that no more. So I would ride the subway, and I would sleep in some of the subway stations that were warm at that time. Yes, I would.
Really?
But once you got to New York, when did you decide that was going to be your life? When did you decide that you wasn't going to go back? When did you decide that you're going to change your name and become someone else?
Well, my name was changed that night that I got on the bus. A girl asked me on the bus she rode to Philadelphia. I rode on to New York. But she asked me my name. She was a nice looking young lady. And she said to me, she said, she had a situation where a guy that she had met came down to North Carolina, and he had lied to her about his living quarters, that he had his own apartment and all that stuff, but he didn't. So she stayed down there the weekend with her mother, his mother, and a sister that had a baby, and they was in a little cramped apartment. She said, I'm going back to New York. Going back to Philadelphia. And that's what she did. So we talked a little bit, mostly she talked, explaining her story to me. And I just listened, and I was just glad when she got off in Pennsylvania. I could concentrate on myself, thinking ahead as to what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it.
So wait a minute. So she gave you the name Bobby?
No, she asked me my name, and I said Bobby.
Oh, so you just said Bobby?
Yeah, I just said Bobby.
Well, why Bobby? Why Bobby?
Okay, I knew a young man that his father was a man that I knew. I lived in his house, and he was actually born out of wedlock to not to his wife, but another lady. So I thought about just taking his name and you know, I'm not sure, but I thought, and I found out later that he was still alive. I knew his brother had passed, but I thought he had passed instead of the brother. So my thoughts were to take his name.
Wow.
Wow. And love. So that was just an attachment on that just came to you because you were looking for love?
Well, Bobby Love was I don't know, it was I always liked it. It's a good name.
It's a good ring. It's a good ring.
There was a basketball player that played for the Chicago Bulls named Bobby Love. Bob Love.
Okay.
And so I thought about him, but I like the name Bobby Love, yes.
So how long did you ride the subway back and forth and stuff before you really found some place, you know, that was decent to live? Or did you end up was able to get a job? No one questioned you anything, you was able to get a job?
Okay, a lady, I went to in walking around New York at this time, I walked into different places. Okay, I saw a Social Security office. So I walked in there and applied for a Social Security card in the name Bobby Love. There was a Black lady that worked there at that time. And I told her, and she looked on my application after I filled it out. I gave her the address in Washington, D.C., where I last lived. She said, "Oh, we're going to send your card here?" She said, "To Washington, D.C.? I said, "Yeah, I'll go down there and get it once you send it." She said, "No, I'll give you your card today." I said, "Okay." So
What?
that right there was a big help when she gave me this Social Security card.
Well, wait, you didn't need any identification.
You got a call the same day?
Yes, I got a card the same day. I had no ID. And you have to have something to get a job and things like that. So she gave me the card and I was on my way. Okay, my next stop was I went to a couple of homeless shelters, but I looked around in that homeless shelters and I said, I'm not standing in here. So there was a flyer that they had advertising jobs at the Concord where they made the movie Dirty Dancing.
Right.
So the next day they was taking a busload of people up there to work. So I said I would go, and I got on that bus the next evening and we drove all the way up there in a bus. It must have been about 12 to 20 of us, going up there. Myself, a couple of white guys, a couple of Spanish people, some more blacks.
I'm gonna have to cut you right quick, Mr. Love. We're gonna take a quick break and we're gonna come right back. Okay? All right.
All right.
We'll be right back.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon.
What's more dangerous? A man who isn't afraid of death or one who's found everything to live for? I asked him if he was proud of me. He emphatically said yes, as he laid his pecan-colored head on my chest, and I went through my mind 1,000 times to figure out what that could possibly mean, and every single example ended in motivation for me. So you may not be afraid to die, but I'm more afraid to let them down. And I found something to live for, which is a dangerous motive forever fueled. See, your thoughts may be involuntary, but my actions are very calculated. I was a man with a plan, but now I'm a dad with a decree, and you can't take that from me. My sons ain't raised by no coward, and they won't be one either. If this be the measure of a man, the yardstick gonna need way more meters. I take it too far, so they never come up short, because I found everything to live for.
Hello, and thanks for joining us tonight. Our topic tonight is the redemption of Bobby Love. And I'm sure if you was watching, you'll begin hearing his story. And we want to continue hearing this fabulous story. Mr. Bobby Love, you was telling us how you got off the train to start your regular life?
Yes. So I go to up to the Concord, and I'm just up there, and my job was to just wash dishes. I said, give me anything. But the big thing was that I would be living there as I worked, and they would take it out of your pay, your living quarters, and I would eat free and those kind of things. So I went up there, and as I went there, I worked 3 days the first night I got there. I worked the next 3 days I worked. Then it was like they said you don't have a schedule. So I look on the schedule, I'm working one day. I would look at the schedule again, I'm working 2 days. And that went on until about late December, I would say. And so after that, I said, after Christmas, I said, man, I'm leaving here. I'm going back down to the city. They're not letting me work enough to make any money. I did the good thing about it, I just lived free as far as, I had a room over there. They had a big old rooming house, and we lived in this rooming house, and I was supposed to have a roommate, but he never showed up. So
you had the room by your
basically by myself. Yeah.
So to fast forward a little bit, before our time ran out, is okay. So how did you get to really living like you're supposed to? So you met Miss Love, Cheryl Love.
Okay.
What happened that you got to that point? Now I'm working, I have a job, I have somewhere to stay, and
yes,
you run into her.
Okay. I met my wife at the job in Brooklyn. I applied for a job, I think it was 1983. And the lady that was running the place at the time, the kitchen, I just applied, like I said, not a cook's job, but a dishwasher. I can wash your dishes. I can do that, But they didn't know that I had skills, like I had already worked in a kitchen and I had other work, that kind of stuff. But anyway, my wife was working there also. So I would meet her, and we talked a few times, and we would have lunch together from time to time. And when I asked her out the first time, she said no. So she didn't want to go out with somebody what she worked. I said, okay.
Well, that's normally right. We don't play the way we work.
And, I found out a little bit about her. She said her mother had passed, and her father, she lived with her father. Her father was big in the church, where they went to church and stuff like that. And all that interests me, I'd always learned, or somebody had told me that, girls that's tight with their fathers make good wives,
Mm-hmm.
By this time, I'm about almost 30 years old at this time. And, I'd always said I wanted to be married and have some children and things like that. So
Right.
after I met her, but I didn't give up on her after she said she wouldn't go out with me, And plus there was somebody else that wanted to date me. And from what I understand, the lady told another lady that told Cheryl that, yeah, you told Bobby no. And the girl said, yeah. She said, I don't want to go. Cheryl said, I don't want to go out with him. I work here with him. But to fight off the other girl that was interested in me, she came back later on and said she would go out with me. And that was the start of my relationship.
No, Mr. Love, you have to get it. She wanted you all the time. But you can't just give in like that.
She didn't want no competition. That's what it was.
You can't make it easy for the man. You know that now.
Exactly. But
now all this. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Well, you have lived an interesting life over the years, and with her, I hear you have 4 beautiful kids.
Yes.
How was your life now when 5 years passed, 10 years passed, 50 years passed? You have this new life. Have you ever thought it would be a time where your past would catch up with you?
Oh, from time to time I would think about it. And, my sister, I have a sister in Greensboro. She came to my wedding in New York, and actually with some other people, my brother, he's passed now. So they said things to me like, are you going to tell her about your real name? And I said, no. I knew if my wife knew that I was, a parole, escape from jail or anything like that, she would tell me to turn myself in. And I just said no. And I told my sister one time, I said, well, I'm going to take it to my grave on my dying bed. If it comes to that, I would tell her, if I'm laying there and knowing I'm going to die, I would tell her that at that time. So.
Wow, you would wait until you're going to die?
He was having such a good life.
But that's how bad I did not want to go back to jail.
Right.
Jail is, oh man, it's dangerous. It's more dangerous now than it was when I was in jail.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that day when you heard the knock at the door, somebody was banging on your door.
Yes.
You thought it was a neighbor?
I thought it was for the neighbor. I had a lady that lived next to me that had some issues, and she had been arrested a couple of times, and I just thought it was for her. And I told him, I said, next door. He said, no, we're looking for 2A. So my wife was in the kitchen, and she said, who the knocking on this door like that, because they was, they had a fist, and it seemed like to me they was hitting the door with their
real
fist.
hard, like they normally do.
Right. And she went to the door and opened the door. And at that time, my bed, our bed was in the living room. So you open the door and there's my bed right there where I was sleeping, because my kids had the other rooms. And they just rushed in, FBI. They had FBI on the back of their blazers. They had New York City police, and it must have been about 12 of them. They came in there and they went through the house.
12?
Yes, there was 4 FBI agents, and the rest of them was New York City police.
That's escort.
Yeah, they thought I had guns and things like that. So they went to the back and they looked around and they asked if I had guns and things like that. They woke up my daughter, was in the last room, and then my other son had already gone to school. Then my other son, I have fraternal twin sons. So Justin was still at home and Jessica was still there. And Jordan had already left for school that morning. So they told him that they told my kids to stay where they are. Do not come up here. We're going to search your house looking for guns. And they said, do you know who your father is? And asking them questions and stuff like that. So after doing all of that, they questioned me and they asked me what was my name. And I said, in a low voice, I said, Bobby Love. He said, no, I want your real name. And that's when my wife said, who are you? And my wife she would start crying, and, they had frightened her pretty bad. So they talked to my kids, and they told my kids, they said that, well, we're going to take your father with us, that your father has been an escapee from North Carolina for a number of years. And we finally last found him. So they said that they were not looking for me. Somebody told them where I was and who I was. So that right there brought all of this on.
Right. Wow.
Do you have any idea who possibly have done that?
I thought
Probably somebody in the family. Somebody, yeah, that's what tell on you, the family. You know it.
I was told that it was a $2,000 reward. From all these years, the reward never changed. So for $2,000, they did what they did to get that by telling them.
That's all you have to do is put up an reward, no matter how old it is. They're going to throw you in for it. That person
after they arrested you and everything, so they took you. I know you spent some time here in Rikers, and then you made the decision that you wanted to go back to North Carolina.
Yeah, they took me out and they told me they wouldn't handcuff me in front of my children. So they took me out and they handcuffed me on the ledge as we were going down. And actually, the cops started talking to me about, after they found out who I was and everything that was involved, they said, man, you have lived a great life, that you should write a book, But little did they know that I had already started writing a book when I first met my wife. And
What?
I used to put the pages up in the top of my closet, and my wife would go up there and read it. But she couldn't understand it because the way I started about coming to New York, and I had the song "Living for the City" by Stevie Wonder. So one day she said to me, she said, "What is that about?" I said, "I told you not to bother that," but she went up there anyway.
Oh my God. Well, so that we know before the show ends, this part of the show, we're coming back to finish up, but to know that, after you went back to North Carolina and everything, you stayed there for another couple of months, almost a year in jail, but you eventually was brought up before the judge again, and they finally released you.
Okay. As I went back to North Carolina, I was at Central Prison. Central Prison was all new now. It was it wasn't like when I was there before. So now, and I'm a deacon in my church, and my life now is great as far as I'm concerned. With my children, everything was good. My two sons had graduated high school. My daughter was down. No, she wasn't down here yet. She was down here yet in her own house. Now this is a house that we have bought together. So I would, I would give everything up to God. My life now is about God and praying.
Well, we certainly, when we look over what you have said, we know it was only God.
Yes.
But we have to wrap up this part of the show. And so we want to thank you for joining us, today to tell your story. And we want to thank everyone for watching. You can continue to watch us finish the show. You can go to Facebook or YouTube and type in Keeping It Real with Shannon, and you can see the rest of the story as he's finished telling the story. But for now, this is the end of the show. So we want to thank you for joining us tonight. And as always, we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Today's show is sponsored by Abu's Bakery. If you have a sweet tooth, stop by Abu's Bakery for some delicious cakes and pies.
Would you like beautiful pictures for your home or your office? Then stop by Faith Art Gallery. They have a large selection of pictures from around the world.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. Keeping it real.
Hi, thanks for sticking around and joining us for the second half of the show. We're talking with the legendary Mr. Bobby Love, and we've been listening to his story. Mr. Love, what I have the problem with is that when you say they came that night and knocking on the door because they had finally found you because someone had turned you in, right? But I'm sure they just didn't come there. They had to be watching you before they came to arrest you that night. So, because you just don't somebody say, okay, I know who the person is or what they are, but without them watching you a little bit first before they come. So my thing is always have the problem when they come down. They always have to come with all the guns drawn, like they come in to arrest the army or something like that, when they only come in to look for one little person and stuff like that, And so they had to be knowing where you go every day, what you do. I'm sure they knew all of that stuff before they came there and stuff like that. So they could see you probably wasn't no man, was a dangerous man. You know what I'm saying? So to come like that, a lot of times when things happen like that, that's why things happen the way they do sometimes. It's totally unnecessary. People get killed for no reason or whatever. But when that happened that day, and then this is it. What was that feeling like? You said, okay, when they say, what's your name? You said, Bobby Love. Well, what's your real name?
Yes, they
Walter
did.
Walter Miller, right? Walter Miller. Like
Right.
what was that feeling like? Like did you feel relieved? Did you feel relieved like okay, I'm glad it's over with?
Not at that point. I what they did tell me that they had set on me for 30 days. They said that they had watched me go grocery shopping. They watched me go to the laundromat. They watched me for 30 days. They got the calls back in December. Now this is January when they came in early that morning. It wasn't at night, it was in the morning. And it was around 6 or so in the morning because my youngest son, well, one of my sons had already gone to school. He had an early class. So they came in right after he left for school.
So the thing about it is, now my thing was, if you've been following you for a month and seeing what you do, where you go, what you do, so they see you like a family man, right? So
Yes.
my thing would have been, well, why are we going to arrest him after
Right.
all of these years, 40 some years? Why are we going to arrest him now and making a whole big issue out of it, like you some escaped convict that had killed about 10 people, you know,
But
like
you
when they
know,
do a massacre or something. You know what I'm saying?
But Lottie, it's easier said than done, right? You know, you don't know what they just
It
want
don't
to
take no
outside.
army to come and arrest one person.
Lottie, you don't know. They're watching him from an external point. They don't know what's in his home. They don't know really what type of lifestyle he has. They don't know who's all involved. So they're taking precaution, right? They're taking precaution. And it was a good that it turned out to be a good precaution and it didn't end, you know, with any loss. But that's one of the things that's really happening today. And I understand what you're saying, that why would they need to go to this extreme, you know, to go for him. They already know who he is. They already know his temperament. And they know he's a working man, working family man.
Yes.
But I guess, you know, when they did knock on your door that time, I wouldn't really say it was relieved. What did you think your wife would think? What would you think your family would think? The life you made at the church as a deacon, what do you think would happen to all those people who have supported you and have known and got to love you?
Okay, first, sorry. First, I had to think about my wife because, I mean, she worked and, you know, she has a job. She has a good job. And then the people in the church. And it was very embarrassing for her. And also, my thoughts were, if she's going to leave me, if she's going to say bye-bye, you know. And so once the next, I got arrested on a Thursday. And that Friday, she couldn't come, but that Saturday, she was there to talk to me and see me. So first thing I asked her if she was going to leave me, and she said no. So that was a relief there, you know. My kids didn't get to see me until maybe a week later, you know, and I talked to them and everything like that and tried to get some understanding of how they felt and how they felt about this whole situation, you know, and they said, they're with me, you know, we're going to go all the way with you. I don't care what. So that was a relief there, you know.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I felt good about that.
Yeah, but see, that's where the love comes in at.
Absolutely.
That's
Yes.
when the deep faith, love comes in
Yes,
at. Because
yes.
even if the person, even if it was worse than what it was, if you truly, truly love that person, you've been loving them for over 40 years, even though you didn't know who they were or whatever, you're gonna stick it out. It's just like a mother with the children. Like, I don't care how bad their little behinds are, and they get in trouble, that mother's gonna stick right there with them to the
Right.
end. Where other
Right.
people be kicking them to the curb. But
Yeah.
that's what the true deep love is with this. Because I wish she could have been here tonight so I could have talked to her.
Yeah.
She couldn't be here, but that's what happens when you have that deep love. And with the children, you are their father and you will always be their father,
Their
regardless
father,
of what
yes.
you do. So that's how that turns out. Now, the people at church, they loved you and they're gonna say amen. And it's gonna be all right, honey. That's all they're gonna say at the church. They're not gonna, you will find a 2-3 in there gossiping. Oh, she's married to that man and he escaped. No, but most of the people is just gonna say, you know what, baby, it's gonna be all right. Just leave it in the hands of the Lord. You know what I'm saying?
Right. My
People don't do
bishop would give me confidence too, because we had prayer, we talked, and he said, you know, what you did is what you did, and that's behind you. And
Exactly.
keep going forward.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And see, that's why when you said that you went, when they took you back to North Carolina and then you had to go back in prison again or whatever, even when you went back to North Carolina, because I'm still thinking when I'm reading everything and thinking about things, I'm like, okay, so why would you put him back in prison when he went back to North Carolina? You know, now that he did serve some years in there.
Yes.
And armed robbery shouldn't have been no 25 to 30 years just for armed robbery when people kill people and don't get but a year or two, or sometimes don't even get any time whatsoever. But they want to throw people in prison just for, you know, little robbery and stuff like that, you know. So I don't understand why they would have sent you back to prison to stay. What was it, another year? When you was in North Carolina, you stayed another year?
No, I stayed 6 months.
6 months, you stayed another 6 months.
Yeah, I stayed 6 months in Rikers Island. And then after my lawyer, we used to talk practically every week at least. So she was telling me that they're not going to give you bail. They're not going, and I kept coming back to court. But every time they would come back to court, they would, you know, just not do anything. So after a while of being there, I told my lawyer in June, and I told my wife first, I said, listen, I'm just going to go ahead on and voluntarily go back to North Carolina. I said, probably that will help me. So it was in June that we came to court, and they told me, I told them that I wanted to go back to North Carolina. And that's what I did. So I left in June to go back down to North Carolina. Now, when I get to North Carolina, like I said, it's all different and new. I would be there at Central Prison for, I think it was 5 days, 3 or 5 days, something like that. And then they sent me to a place called Spruce Pines. And because of my lawyer had already set me up with the lawyer that I was going to have in North Carolina. So he was going to come see me, but the day that he was going to come see me, I was shipped out to Spruce Pines. So when I get to Spruce Pines, they sent a lawyer that's in that part of the state, and I talked to her. Now, one of the things that they said to me, and I don't know why he would say this so early in the time. I'm there in North Carolina less than 7 days. He told me, don't get my hopes up thinking that I'm going to go home on the first time if I can get you in front of the parole board.
You should have fired him immediately.
Well,
I would have fired him immediately. He would have been gone.
I told him, I said, unless you have something to say that's nice, don't, you know, say things like that, you know?
Absolutely.
I said,
no, you being too nice. You being too nice. He'd have been fired. What lawyer gonna talk to you like that? It's supposed to be giving you hope and doing everything that they can do to make sure you get out of this dump.
So I told him, I said, you know, if you don't have nothing nice to say to me or write to me, don't write anything, you know. But I never talked to him directly. I talked to this lady that was a part of the law firm. So sure enough, I started saying then, I'm going home, you know. And when I started meeting the guys that was there in the prison with me, it was about 800 of us, you know. So, you know, guys ask you questions about who are you, this, that, and the other. Somebody said, yeah, he from New York, and they start calling me New York. That's that kind of stuff, you know. But the guys would come down and they would say things to me like, yeah, man, you know, what's up? What's up? You know, New York, this, that, and the other. I've been to New York, you know, they're trying to tell me that story. And then I would tell them, I said, yeah, well, I'm going home. And I kept telling them that. And sure enough, it came true.
You know? That's interesting, but it's good. But over the years, have you ever thought about the other 3 men that was arrested? Did you ever hear from them?
Well, one of them is one of the guys, my co-defendant, passed. And the other 2, I have talked to them, yes.
Did they serve their full time?
I'm not sure, but I know that they have good jobs now. Okay. And they one of them is works in Washington, D.C. as a refrigerator and air conditioner repairman, you know, and he takes little side jobs and that kind of stuff, you know. And my other co-defendant, he's down in Raleigh, and he's a deacon in his church, and his life has turned around, you know. He has about 4 or 5 children, you know.
Okay. And So, Mr. Love, would if you could do this all over again, is there anything that you would do differently? You feel that you would do differently?
I'm not sure. I would have to think about that. You know, you know, if I don't know if you read Humans of New York. Humans of New York is the one that got all of it started. So
Okay.
when I met the guy that does Human of New York, he asked me that same question, and I told him, if I do it different, I don't meet you. I don't meet you to get my story out there and to, you know, get on your podcast. His podcast, from what I understand, it was like over 1 million and some change. I don't know, about 10 or 12 million people that followed my story on his podcast of Humans of New York, you know? And then that's when the people started, and people contacted me about a book and movies and all that kind of stuff like that. So from there,
Well, I guess you wouldn't do it different. Then I guess this is the best way to do it. Then
You know they say, you know what they say, right? When they ask that question, would you change something different in life? Some people may jump to the masses and say, "Oh yes, I would. Oh, I would do this. I would do this." But then again, you wouldn't change it because it leads to the roles of you today.
Mhm.
Right? So this is what people really don't understand, the benefit of that. They say, yeah, okay, we all have some trials, tribulations, some trauma,
Yes.
many. But if you don't experience those things, then you wouldn't be able to pivot and be redirected to something great.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I just want to say this. Oh, Humans of New York, the day that he put the stories out on his podcast, he was putting out three paragraphs at a time. It was a total of 11. That's the same day that I had to go visit my parole officer. So when my parole officer, and you know, they looking at this, and so I get there to visit my parole officer that day. You know, I have to go in and let her know what has happened in the last month or so, if I had any police contact, that kind of stuff. Well, she said, "Is that you on that podcast?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "That sounds like your story, and when you gotta escape and everything like that." I said, "Oh, it does." And so one of
You
the
didn't know
other
she was talking to a celebrity.
but she would say to me, she said, "I know it's you." And we talked for a minute, you know, and then the supervisor came over, Mr. Taylor, you know. So all of them, you know, we kind of had a big laugh about the whole thing. And as people was reading it, you know, the way he wrote it, he said that the lady that lived next door to me was the crazy lady, you know. And those were some of the descriptions of things that had happened, you
Crazy
know.
lady.
Because he interviewed me, you know, 2 days, you know. Then he went to Jamaica to find, you know, do a fine print of everything, you know. So he waited, because at this same time, this was when Kobe Bryant, you know, got killed, and
Yeah.
he dominated the news for about 2 weeks, you know. So after that, you know, that's when he started putting the story out on the Humans of New York. Yeah.
Well, I'm really happy that, you know, you and Miss Shara is sharing this story, and I'm really glad that you started writing this story, because nobody would believe this. Nobody would believe this. It's truthfully, because I know when LaRose told me, I was like, that can't be true. You're not telling me. She said, "I'm telling you it happened." I was like, what? Because like when you was talking about how you got on the bus in Raleigh and then you came all the way to New York, because I'm thinking like, well, he wasn't scared by the time he stepped on the bus in New York that they were going to be waiting for. I don't understand how the people down there, if they found out you had escaped, didn't have your picture out up and down the whole 95 highway. So whatever bus you was on, they know you had to get off someplace. That was like, that's unbelievable.
I knew that there was things. Okay, they have changed a lot of things from the time I escaped, especially the buses. At that time, you could open the back door of the bus. It was like, those yellow cheese buses. They used to take us to work in those buses. But since going back down there, when I went back to be transferred to Spruce Pines, you cannot go through that back door. They got a big old chain on the back of it. They have added another guard in the bus. So you got a guard that's driving, and you got the second driver with a shotgun that's there now.
So that way
wow.
you get on.
Yeah. And the lady in diagnostics said, because you escaped back then, that you made them change all of these buses and things.
So you became more famous than you thought.
But see, the good part is I'm hearing this story from where my family is, because my family lives in Raleigh. Part of my family lives in Raleigh. Yeah, they all scattered out all over North Carolina. So when she said Raleigh, I said, that's where my cousin them live, is in Raleigh. So he was at the bus station down there with him. But truthfully, Mr. Love, I really just want to thank you, really, for just giving us the time and taking the time to come on and, sit and talk with us and tell us about the story. Because I'm telling you, it's a story that needs to be heard. And I really cannot wait until the movie come out, because I definitely want to see myself driving the sheriff's car. You know what I mean?
She want to be she really want to be the one with the shotgun. She want to be. But before we close the after show, what do you want the takeaway to be for people who hear your story?
Yeah. Well, I hope my story will never affect my children. My children, they've been good. No issues or any kind with the police. That's one of the things that I worried about as they were growing up. My fraternal twin sons, they have done everything they could. One is still in college. One has graduated from college. My two daughters have, built a life for themselves with their, one of my daughters is married. My other daughter now has a baby. And I live for them, and I want them to be as happy and successful as they can be.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all right. They have learned something from you. They know how to be slick and get things done. That's all. So that's what we want for our children. We want them to know how to be slick and take care of themselves. So they're not gonna go against anything that you have raised them to do. And they won't do that. They won't do that. So you, their dad, and they love their dad, and they're not gonna. All kids straight. All kids straight.
For myself
we
and my
straight
wife.
when we was young. So hey,
yes,
huh?
I pray for my wife and myself because we've had some health issues we, trying to work through.
Okay.
And
but join the club. Join the club. We all got some health issues. Everybody's sick. Trust me. Everybody you talk to is sick with something. So don't even, as long as you just try to do something about it and change. We got to change our eating habits and things like that. Yes. That's the problem. Because that good Southern food. We can't give up them collard greens and macaroni and cheese. I'd rather just die eating all of that stuff.
See, that's the problem, Lottie. A lot of people are living to eat and not eating to live.
Yeah.
Well, we look at it this way. We look at least we die happy. If I'm eating my macaroni and cheese and collard greens and ribs, I'm happy. So, Mr. Bobby Love, thank you so much. Say hello to Miss Cheryl Foy. I was hoping we'd get a chance to talk to her tonight, but maybe at another time we can talk to her. But I really, really, really appreciate, you coming on and sharing your story. And I'm hoping that it's just going to spread and spread and spread because, sometimes things is meant to be. Sometimes things is meant to be. So sometimes I'm looking at this like, this was meant to be something to share.
Yes.
Someone's life that shows you that you can do something, but it doesn't mean you have to keep doing it, that you can't turn your life around.
Yes.
And let people know that you can live the life that you were supposed to live. So this wasn't by no mistake, no error or nothing. It happened like it was supposed to happen. So thank you. And hopefully maybe you'll come back, later and join us again and tell us the other part of your story after the movie comes out and everything.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Take care now. And thank you for joining us for our after show. And remember, you can always go to Facebook and like our page, go to YouTube and subscribe. We're on every Saturday at 5:30 on Brick Arts Media and Manhattan Neighborhood Network at 2:30 p.m. So, look, thanks again. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.